Welcome, and thank you for joining me tonight. As we settle in, we'll drift through the calm and powerful legends of the iconic weather trio, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza, exploring the balance of land, sea, and sky that has shaped the world of Pokémon since ancient times. From the deep, endless pressure of the ocean floor rose Kyogre, the embodiment of water itself. Its body shimmered with the pattern of tides, each pulse echoing the heartbeat of the sea. It is said that Kyogre's movements formed the first currents that shaped the planet's coasts. Wherever it swam, rain clouds followed, and the air grew heavy with the scent of storms. Ancient Hoenn myth describes it as the origin of rain, a being whose presence alone could turn the sky into an ocean. From magma and stone, beneath the crust of the newborn earth, came Groudon, whose every step lifted mountains and dried the flooded plains. The heat radiating from its body forged the first deserts. Early Pokédex entries describe Groudon as a Pokémon that expanded the continents. In the mythic text known as the Legend of the Land and Sea, it is said that when Groudon roared, volcanoes awakened, and the land itself grew outward toward the horizon. For eons, the two never met. Kyogre slumbered in the ocean trenches, dreaming of rising waves, while Groudon rested beneath molten layers of rock, content in silence. The world remained in harmony until both awoke at once. No single text records the reason. Some Hoenn historians suggest a meteorite strike disturbed their ancient sleep. Others believe the balance of natural energy shifted after countless ages of stillness. Whatever the cause, when Kyogre rose from the deep, the seas began to swell. Groudon emerged soon after, pushing back the tides with erupting land. For the first time, water and fire met directly, and the planet trembled. The sky darkened with thunderclouds that stretched across continents. Earthquakes split the sea. The ocean rose high enough to swallow mountains, only to be pushed back by new peaks forming from magma. The Hoenn region, still young, nearly tore itself apart. It was then that the third being appeared, Rayquaza, guardian of the upper atmosphere. While Kyogre ruled the sea and Groudon the land, Rayquaza belonged to the sky itself. For centuries, it had circled the planet's stratosphere, unseen by those below. Covered in emerald scales that glowed like the northern lights, Rayquaza fed on meteor particles drifting through the air. When the clash of land and sea reached the heavens, its rest was broken. Descending from the clouds like a streak of green lightning, Rayquaza roared, and the storm froze in silence. The ancient texts describe its voice as a sound that turned thunder to air. Kyogre and Groudon looked upward, their power faltering for the first time. The myth says that Rayquaza's mere presence calmed the waters and cooled the magma, its energy neutralizing both extremes. Modern researchers believe this legend reflects the natural balance between weather systems, pressure and temperature, rainfall and heat. Kyogre represents the hydrosphere, the ocean and rain cycle. Groudon represents the lithosphere, the land and tectonic energy. Rayquaza represents the atmosphere, the balance of air that keeps the other two forces stable. Their struggle mirrors the way the planet regulates itself, chaotic but cyclical. After Rayquaza's descent, the storm subsided. Kyogre returned to the depths, curling beneath the seafloor in caverns now known as the Marine Trench. Groudon sank back into magma chambers beneath Mount Chimney, the volcano that still vents the planet's heat. And Rayquaza, its duty complete, soared upward again, coiling among the clouds. In modern Pokédex entries, it is said to live in the ozone layer, endlessly circling the Earth to maintain balance between sea and land. The civilization that grew in Hoenn long after their slumber still felt their influence. The Sky Pillar, a massive tower rising from the sea near Pacific Log Town, was built as a shrine to Rayquaza, a place where the sky meets the earth. The Cave of Origin in Suatopolis became a sacred site for those who believed the trio's first clash took place there, forming the crater lake that holds the city today. Archaeological evidence shows carvings of serpentine dragons above swirling waves and flames, the oldest depictions of the Weather Trio known to exist. Even in the modern world, traces of their power remain. The Hoenn region's climate patterns reflect their myth. Frequent storms from the ocean, volcanic soil in the north, and air currents that stabilize both. To scientists, these features are natural. To the people of Hoenn, they are living proof that the balance once restored by Rayquaza still holds. In recorded history, that balance nearly broke again. During the events remembered as the Primal Awakening, human ambition disturbed the trio's fragile harmony. Research into primal reversion, an ancient form of evolution fueled by natural energy, reawakened Kyogre and Groudon in their primal states. Kyogre's waters rose higher than ever before, and Groudon's sunlight grew strong enough to dry oceans into glass. According to modern documentation, Rayquaza was the only Pokémon capable of stopping them again. It absorbed energy from meteorites, awakening its mega evolution, which amplified its control over the atmosphere. In its new form, it descended once more through the storm clouds, wings trailing golden light that split the dark sky in half. When it roared, the torrential rain halted, and the scorching sun faded, returning Hoenn to calm once more. Unlike the first conflict, humans witnessed this one. They saw what their ancestors only told as myth, the sky opening in emerald light, the sea and land bending to it. To those who watched, it was not just legend but revelation, a reminder that nature's balance was never meant to be controlled. Even the modern Pokédex entries speak with reverence. Kyogre is said to expand the seas with rain that never ends. Groudon brings sunlight to create land. Rayquaza lives high above the clouds, calming the other two when they rage. Together, they define the structure of Hoenn's ecosystem, a triangle of energy linking ocean, land, and sky. The symbols of the trio appear throughout Hoenn's art and architecture. The pattern etched into Suatopolis' central plaza mirrors the swirling spiral of a hurricane, representing Kyogre's rain, Groudon's magma, and Rayquaza's wind converging into unity. In Moss Deep's observatory, telescopes are engraved with the three elemental sigils, reminding scholars that even the stars are part of the same balance. In the modern day, their influence remains not just scientific, but spiritual. Fishermen leave offerings of shells to Kyogre before voyages, praying for steady waters. Farmers in the volcanic plains honor Groudon with stone carvings, hoping for fertile soil. And skyfarers, pilots, and weather researchers still recite an old Hoenn saying before flights: "When the green star moves, the world breathes." It's a phrase that means calm weather and an unseen guardian above. Rayquaza's role as peacekeeper earned it a place as one of the most revered Pokémon in Hoenn's mythology. Ancient murals call it the serpent who stitched the heavens. In one legend, its scales are described as woven from the air itself. The idea of a sky serpent appears in cultures around the world, but Hoenn's interpretation is unique. It portrays Rayquaza as both divine and natural, a creature of balance rather than domination. In later research logs compiled after the discovery of mega evolution, scientists theorized that Rayquaza's megaform channels a kind of atmospheric plasma generated by meteorite particles within its body. When it consumes meteor fragments, it releases bursts of radiant energy capable of calming extreme weather systems. It doesn't suppress energy, it harmonizes it, absorbing chaos until it becomes light. That harmony became the foundation for one of Hoen's oldest prayers, found inscribed in ancient sky pillar ruins. When the sea forgets its song and the land forgets its rest, may the sky remember for them both. No matter how many generations pass, those words remain true. The Weather Trio's story isn't about destruction, it's about balance restored through understanding. The storm always returns, but so does the calm. Beneath the surface of the Hoenn seas, deeper than any submarine can reach, lies a silence so vast that even sound struggles to move through it. It is here, within this endless stillness, that Kyogre sleeps. Legends say the ocean itself breathes through it, that the tide rises and falls with the rhythm of its pulse, and that every raindrop falling on Hoenn's shores carries a trace of its dream. Kyogre's origins are older than the continents. According to the ancient Hoenn texts preserved in the Slateport Museum and the murals within the Cave of Origin, the world was once nothing but molten rock and heavy mist. When the first waters cooled the surface, the condensation formed into storm clouds, and from those clouds, Kyogre took shape. Its body mirrored the sea, vast, fluid, and uncontainable. This story, while mythic, aligns with the way the Pokémon world often describes creation. Powerful beings, embodying natural elements rather than ruling them. Kyogre didn't invent the sea, it was the sea given form, intelligence, and will. In the Pokédex, Kyogre is consistently described as the creator of the oceans, and a Pokémon said to have expanded the sea by bringing heavy rain. Its earliest recorded mention appeared in the Pokédex of the third generation, where its influence was tied to the shaping of the planet itself. The lore emphasizes that its rain wasn't destructive, but generative. Every droplet was a seed of life, every storm a cleansing force that allowed the world to grow. Unlike Groudon's violent eruptions or Rayquaza's celestial silence, Kyogre's actions are both nurturing and dangerous, a perfect duality. It floods to give, but it also reminds the world that excess, even of life, leads to ruin. This duality has been interpreted by scholars as a reflection of water's nature in both myth and science. In Hoenn's culture, fishermen and weather researchers alike speak of Kyogre not as a god of destruction, but as a cycle, a being that ensures the planet never dries, even if it sometimes drowns. One of the most fascinating aspects of Kyogre's existence is its primal form, rediscovered during the events surrounding the Delta episode in the Hoenn remakes. When exposed to the energy known as primal reversion, Kyogre reverts to its ancient state, more radiant, heavier, and more powerful. Unlike Mega Evolution, which relies on a bond with a trainer and a keystone, primal reversion draws directly from natural energy. This difference is important because it shows that Kyogre's transformation isn't guided by emotion or partnership, but by environmental resonance. The more energy the world releases, the more ancient and unstoppable Kyogre becomes. In its primal state, Kyogre is said to have raised the sea level to such a degree that even highlands turned to coral reefs. The move Origin Pulse, unique to this form, channels the deep energy of the ocean floor into beams of pure water pressure. The attack's name implies something sacred, the first movement of water itself, like the heartbeat of the planet. Modern analyses of primal Kyogre's power suggest that it can manipulate water vapor density and atmospheric pressure, effectively summoning global rain. This aligns perfectly with its lore of expanding the seas and gives scientific texture to the ancient myths. The relationship between Kyogre and weather is one of the most grounded examples of how Pokémon lore mirrors natural balance. Rainfall, in the real world, depends on heat and evaporation, and Hoenn's climate, with its alternating volcanic and tropical zones, makes that pattern believable. When Groudon's sunlight grows too intense, Kyogre's storms return to cool the air. When the land expands too far, the ocean rises to meet it. This isn't simple opposition, it's equilibrium in motion. Each legendary, in its own way, fulfills a role in planetary regulation. Hoenn's ancient civilization seemed to understand this deeply. In ruins discovered around Sutopolis, murals show Kyogre surrounded by concentric circles, waves moving outward into infinity. The outermost circles contain faint carvings of Wingull and Pelipper, suggesting that even ordinary Pokémon owe their migration patterns to the movement of this great sea guardian. Some scholars interpret this as early ecological philosophy, that the people of Hoenn saw their environment not as random, but as orchestrated by divine rhythm. The blue orb, the artifact tied to Kyogre's awakening, was once believed to be a piece of crystallized ocean energy. In ancient lore, the orb was described as a tear shed by the sea when it first saw the sky. Scientifically, it functions as a focus for natural energy, possibly a remnant of the meteorite that first awakened the trio. In gameplay, it allows the trainer to unlock Primal Kyogre, but narratively, it symbolizes empathy. Only one who can synchronize their will with the sea's emotions can awaken it without disaster. Interestingly, the bond between Kyogre and Rayquaza is often overlooked in discussion. Though the two never share direct dialogue in any canon media, their relationship is implied through balance rather than rivalry. In the Delta episode's climax, Rayquaza's presence doesn't destroy Kyogre, it calms it. The animation of their confrontation shows Kyogre lowering its fins and submerging peacefully as if remembering its place in the cycle. This visual detail reinforces the theme that these titans aren't evil, they're ancient instincts returning to order when guided by something wiser. Kyogre has also been tied to several myths outside Hoenn. In Sinnoh, a tablet from the Canalave Library refers to the ocean that walks. Scholars believe this to be a distant reference to Kyogre. In the Crown Tundra's frozen seas, inscriptions mention the sleeping wave beneath the frost, again believed to connect to its legend. These scattered myths suggest that Kyogre's influence, or at least its worship, extended far beyond its home region, shaping early human understanding of the seas. Even within the games, subtle environmental clues tie back to its legend. Hoenn's abundant water roots, rain-heavy roots like 124 and 125, and the location of Sutopolis within a flooded caldera all reinforce the sense that water defines the region's identity. The developers confirmed that Kyogre's theme song incorporates rising minor chords to evoke the swell of ocean tides, a detail designed to make players feel the sea's rhythm even before realizing its mythic importance. Culturally, Kyogre's image carries many interpretations. To seafarers, it's a bringer of fortune, ensuring safe passage. To farmers, it's a symbol of renewal, tied to the return of rain. But in artistic circles, it represents solitude. The idea of an immense, intelligent creature drifting alone through the endless blue resonates with something deeply human, the feeling of connection to something far greater, yet distant. In that way, Kyogre mirrors the melancholy beauty of the ocean itself. In the anime and movies, Kyogre's portrayals have remained consistent with its mythic tone. In Pokémon Destiny Deoxys, it appears as a looming force of nature, summoned by the imbalance caused by an alien Pokémon's arrival. Its battles are rarely about anger. They're about response, nature correcting what humanity or other forces have disturbed. Later, in Pokémon Generations, Kyogre's emergence is accompanied by tranquil piano chords and gentle rain, showing the quiet majesty beneath its destructive power. What's particularly notable is how its design reinforces these themes. The glowing bioluminescent lines along its fins resemble both the veins of coral and the currents of the seafloor. In its primal state, these markings extend into spirals, reminiscent of nautilus shells, an ancient symbol of natural perfection. Even the sound design, the echoing whale-like cries layered with synthetic undertones, blends the organic with the cosmic, reminding players that this Pokémon is both creature and concept. Kyogre's cry, in its earliest game files, was modeled after slowed-down recordings of whale songs and reversed wind audio. This unusual combination creates a sound that feels alive yet impossible to pinpoint. It's a detail many players never notice consciously, but it leaves a lasting emotional imprint, the sense of something deep, ancient, and unreachable. One lesser-known fact comes from the internal Hoenn development notes. Early drafts of Kyogre's design featured 4 fin-like arms and a longer tail, resembling an orca crossed with a manta ray. Over time, the design was simplified to its now iconic silhouette, a smooth, whale-like shape that could glide effortlessly in both air and water. The simplicity helped emphasize its serenity, aligning with the concept that true power doesn't need ornamentation. In competitive history, Kyogre remains one of the most dominant Pokémon ever introduced. Its ability Drizzle, which summons endless rain in earlier generations, redefined battle strategy. Teams built entirely around rain, called Rain Offense, often centered on Kyogre as both weather setter and sweeper. Even after later generations adjusted the mechanics to limit weather duration, its presence continued to shape the metagame. Players learned that controlling the weather wasn't just about dealing damage, it was about dictating the battlefield's rhythm. Much like the Pokémon itself dictates the rhythm of the sea, Kyogre's moveset reflects that dominance. Origin Pulse, Water Spout, and Ice Beam are all thematic extensions of its lore. Overwhelming force that starts calm and builds into something catastrophic. Yet even in this power, there's an elegance. Unlike Groudon's raw eruptions or Rayquaza's aerial assaults, Kyogre's strength is graceful, flowing, and wide-reaching, an attack that doesn't strike but envelops. In art, Kyogre is often paired with Groudon and Rayquaza in the triangle formation, representing sea, land, and sky. But when isolated, it is always drawn in movement, never still, never confined. Its form curves naturally, evoking motion and continuity, as if the artists themselves couldn't imagine it at rest. This imagery aligns perfectly with its mythic purpose. The sea never sleeps entirely, it only dreams between tides. Even the smallest Pokédex entries carry poetry when read in sequence. It sleeps in a deep trench. It brought about heavy rains to expand the seas. It is said to have battled with Groudon for dominance of land. Each sentence reads like a fragment of an epic written in stone, connecting gameplay lore to an older, mythological rhythm that transcends generations of players. In the end, Kyogre is more than a creature. It is a reminder, a reflection of the vast, unpredictable world that birthed it, a mirror for the storms that rage both outside and within. Its legends teach that strength isn't measured by conquest, but by balance, by knowing when to rise and when to rest. The ocean will always return to calm, just as Kyogre always returns to its deep slumber, waiting until the world once again needs the cleansing of rain. When the world was still young and the sky burned red with the heat of creation, it was said that Groudon stirred beneath the earth. Where Kyogre represented the flowing calm of the ocean, Groudon was the slow, steady heartbeat of the planet itself. Its body was formed from molten minerals, each plate of armor cooling into jagged scales of crimson stone. Legends say that when Groudon moved, entire mountain ranges rose behind it like waves frozen in time. Groudon's role in Hoenn's mythos mirrors the formation of continents. Ancient Pokédex entries describe it as the Pokémon that expanded the lands, suggesting that its influence was tied to tectonic growth and volcanic creation. When it walked, magma turned to rock, and rock to soil, the foundation of all terrestrial life. To the people of early Hoenn, Groudon wasn't simply a god of fire or destruction. It was the reason there was land to stand on. In the Cave of Origin's oldest murals, Groudon is depicted in a circle opposite Kyogre, their shapes divided by a thin line of swirling air, an early symbol of Rayquaza's mediation. These carvings were found to contain traces of obsidian, not naturally occurring in the region's limestone. This led researchers to believe they were created during an ancient volcanic eruption, possibly by survivors who witnessed Groudon's power firsthand. Modern science gives myth a strange kind of validation. The Hoenn region lies atop one of the most volcanically active zones in the Pokémon world, dotted with geothermal vents and lava flows. Mount Chimney, the highest peak, constantly shifts the climate around Laveridge and Falarbor. If Groudon represents the planet's mantle energy, then these natural features are its echoes, the world still moving long after the Titan has fallen asleep. Groudon's elemental connection to sunlight is equally fascinating. Its ability, Drought, manifests as a sudden intensification of solar energy. While Kyogre's drizzle spreads moisture across the battlefield, Groudon's Drought evaporates it instantly. The balance between the two is not simple opposition, but complementarity, where one nourishes through rain, the other renews through light. This mirrors the dual necessity of sun and water in sustaining ecosystems. Its primal form, rediscovered through natural energy, takes this concept further. Primal Groudon becomes part fire type, a living volcano radiating heat that can dry oceans and ignite the atmosphere itself. When researchers at the Moss Deep Space Center measured environmental readings during simulations of primal reversion, the data suggested heat levels approaching several thousand degrees, enough to vitrify sand into glass. In the lore, this transformation is described as the land remembering its flame, as though the planet itself reawakens through Groudon's consciousness. The move Precipice Blades, unique to primal Groudon, is another example of design mirroring mythology. It creates molten fissures beneath opponents, representing tectonic rupture. Its name, derived from the word precipice, evokes the edge of destruction, the thin divide between stability and chaos. Yet, when viewed thematically, these blades also represent creation. Each split in the earth gives rise to new minerals, new life, new landscapes. Groudon's devastation, like Kyogre's floods, is cyclical renewal. Groudon's coloration carries symbolic weight too. The deep red of its scales, lined with glowing magma-like fissures, evokes the imagery of iron veins within rock, a living reflection of the Earth's core. In its primal state, those lines turn gold, representing the crystallization of magma into solid land. This transition from red to gold mirrors the cooling process of lava, transforming violent energy into enduring form. In art and legend, Groudon is portrayed as solitary and stubborn, but not malicious. It values stillness, resting for centuries within magma chambers where few other creatures can survive. One passage from the Scroll of Sutopolis describes its slumber. The land hums beneath its weight, and even silence bends to its patience. The people who carved these words lived in constant fear of earthquakes and eruptions, yet they revered Groudon as the ultimate protector, a being who bore the planet's burden so that life could exist above. Culturally, Groudon has long symbolized endurance and self-reliance. Farmers in volcanic regions place small clay effigies of it near their fields, hoping to bless the soil with fertility. The belief stems from an ancient practice where ash from eruptions was seen as a gift. Though destructive, it made the land rich. To this day, those effigies can be found outside Laveridge homes, standing watch near hot springs that trace their origin back to the Titan's power. The relationship between Groudon and Kyogre is often simplified as a rivalry, but the deeper mythology paints them as siblings, two halves of the same origin. One creates, the other renews. Their clashes occur not out of hatred but necessity, a rebalancing act whenever the planet tips too far toward one element. In the oldest texts, it is said that the sea wept for the land, and the land burned for the sea, suggesting an almost poetic understanding that their conflict was also connection. When Rayquaza descended to quell their fury, Groudon's role was to yield. The moment Rayquaza roared, Groudon's heat dimmed, its body sinking slowly back into the magma below. This submission is not weakness, it is wisdom, the understanding that balance cannot exist without surrender. In that way, Groudon represents restraint as much as strength. In terms of gameplay history, Groudon has mirrored this theme of control. In competitive formats, it has served both as an offensive powerhouse and as a weather setter that shapes the entire battle environment. Its desolate land ability in primal form nullifies all water-type attacks, a literal manifestation of land dominating sea. Yet even in this triumph, Groudon's effectiveness depends on timing and strategy. Too much power too soon, and the balance falters, a mirror to its role in myth. Groudon's sound design in the games also reflects its personality. Its roar is constructed from layers of deep rumbles mixed with slowed recordings of earthquakes and volcano blasts. Developers confirmed that the sound was engineered to convey not just noise but pressure, a subsonic vibration that players could feel through their controllers. The effect was meant to make Groudon's presence physical, not just visual. Its Pokédex entries across generations reinforced the same character, ancient, immense, and tied to the birth of continents. It brought forth lands and expanded them, reads one. It sleeps in magma underground and is said to awaken when magma flows. It is said to have battled Kyogre in primal times before Rayquaza intervened. Each retelling condenses an epic into a single sentence, factual on the surface, poetic underneath. In Pokémon Emerald, the cutscene depicting their confrontation remains one of the most iconic in franchise history. The moment Groudon's claws meet Kyogre's waves, the camera pans upward into a boiling sky, foreshadowing Rayquaza's descent. Even without words, the sequence encapsulates the entire myth, conflict, chaos, and the inevitable calm that follows. Beyond its mythological and competitive roles, Groudon also connects to broader environmental themes. The Hoenn region's volcanic soil, geothermal activity, and ecosystem diversity are all reflections of its influence. Real-world analogies to Groudon's domain include the creation of new islands through eruptions, a slow but unstoppable reminder that destruction and creation are one. In the anime, Groudon has been depicted as both savior and threat. In the special, The Battle of the Badge of Fire and Water, its awakening threatens to scorch Hoenn, yet it ultimately helps restore equilibrium once calmed. Its portrayal highlights how even immense power can serve purpose when guided by understanding. Design-wise, Groudon's jagged body and heavy proportions contrast Kyogre's fluid grace. Where one glides, the other anchors. This dichotomy visually embodies their elemental balance. Water flows, earth stands firm. Early design sketches showed Groudon with smoother edges and fewer spikes, but Game Freak artists later added angular ridges to emphasize geological formation, like tectonic plates locking together. Symbolically, Groudon is the embodiment of land reclamation, of permanence in a world shaped by change. Its mythology teaches that even after floods and storms, the ground remains, scarred but unbroken. To sleep beneath the volcano is to trust that the world will continue above you, that the land will outlast its fires. In one of the rarest Hoenn manuscripts, the stone hymn of Suetopolis, Groudon's final slumber is described in words that capture its essence. The mountain bowed and became its bed, the flame cooled and became its heart, and in its silence, the world took root. The poem ends there, suggesting that from Groudon's rest, life began. It's a story not of apocalypse, but of renewal, a reflection of how the ancients understood the land's enduring patience. Today, Groudon remains both symbol and mystery. Geologists in the Pokémon world still study residual energy beneath Mount Chimney, occasionally detecting unexplained tremors that they half-jokingly call Groudon's breath. Whether myth or truth, those vibrations remind Hoenn's people that their world was once shaped by a being whose every movement remade the earth. And just as the sea remembers Kyogre, the land will always remember Groudon, not as a destroyer, but as the first builder, the silent architect of the ground beneath every trainer's step. High above the clouds, where sunlight becomes thin and stars begin to shimmer through daylight haze, a silent guardian moves, a shape long and serpentine, gliding between the wind currents with no trace of effort. This is Rayquaza, the final member of the Weather Trio, a Pokémon that embodies the balance between earth and sea, and the calm between storms. Where Groudon roars and Kyogre crashes, Rayquaza whispers, a voice of the heavens that speaks only when the world forgets harmony. Rayquaza's legend begins not on land or sea, but in the ozone layer, a place beyond the reach of human flight until recent generations. Ancient Hoenn myths describe it as the sky dragon that sleeps within the wind, an eternal being that watches silently over the planet from the uppermost sky. For centuries, no human had ever seen it directly. It was a rumor told by sailors who claimed that green light sometimes rippled above the horizon during calm weather, a celestial shimmer mistaken for an aurora, but said by the old to be the scales of the dragon stirring in its endless orbit. In Hoenn's recorded history, Rayquaza is not tied to the creation of the world, but its preservation. The oldest texts, carved into the walls of the Sky Pillar, speak of a time when the land and sea raged endlessly, and the sky fell to silence until it remembered its guardian. When Rayquaza descended, the storm stopped. In modern retellings, that moment defines its character. Peace through presence, not force. Scientifically, Rayquaza's physiology makes it unique among all Pokémon. Unlike Groudon and Kyogre, whose bodies mirror terrestrial and aquatic life, Rayquaza's biology seems extraterrestrial. It is said to have fed on meteoroids for millennia, its body absorbing minerals and energy from space debris that burn through the atmosphere. This diet may explain its shimmering emerald hue and bioluminescent rings, which glow brighter during its mega evolution. The fact that it can mega evolve without a stone, drawing power directly from consumed meteor energy, reinforces the idea that it functions on a completely different plane of existence. The Pokédex refers to Rayquaza as the guardian of the ozone layer and the Pokémon that ends the clash between Kyogre and Groudon. Both scientifically and thematically, it represents the atmospheric equilibrium that moderates the planet's extremes. Without the ozone layer, sunlight would burn away oceans. Without wind currents, rain would stagnate. Rayquaza, by extension, symbolizes the unseen stability that allows life to continue. In the Delta episode of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, players witness its intervention firsthand. As a massive meteor hurtles toward Hoenn, Rayquaza descends from the sky, absorbing the energy of the falling rock and transforming into Mega Rayquaza, a being of radiant power whose design blends celestial and divine imagery. Its glowing yellow tendrils resemble solar flares, and its elongated form coils like a serpent made of pure aurora. The transformation sequence, where it rises through the stratosphere, absorbing energy while a coral score swells, remains one of the most awe-inspiring moments in Pokémon's storytelling history. Mega Rayquaza is not simply stronger, it is transcendent. Its ability, Delta Stream, warps the weather itself, nullifying the effects of all other climate conditions, including the sunlight and rainfall of Groudon and Kyogre. This power symbolizes its role as a mediator, neutralizing extremes so that balance can return. From a gameplay perspective, Delta Stream ensures that no other weather dominates while Rayquaza flies, a direct reflection of its mythic purpose. Lore from Moss Deep Space Center notes that the meteorite which originally awakened Rayquaza may have originated from beyond the solar system, implying that this Pokémon's origin lies among the stars. This cosmic background connects it to broader Pokémon cosmology, linking it thematically to beings like Deoxys, another extraterrestrial entity whose arrival to Earth disrupted natural order. When Deoxys's energy began interfering with the atmosphere, Rayquaza descended again, not out of malice, but instinct, an immune response of the planet itself. Throughout every depiction, Rayquaza is portrayed as both protector and enigma. In the anime special Pokémon, Destiny Deoxys, its battle against the alien Pokémon devastates the city of Larus, yet its motivation remains pure, defending the skies it calls home. Once the misunderstanding ends, Rayquaza departs quietly into the upper air, leaving behind no grudge, no vengeance, only calm. This is a recurring theme in all its appearances. It acts only when equilibrium is broken, and once restored, it retreats without demand for worship or recognition. Culturally, the people of Hoenn revere Rayquaza as a bridge between heaven and earth. The Sky Pillar, with its dizzying spiral staircase and ancient murals, was constructed to reach the layer of clouds believed to be the dragon's resting place. Each floor is adorned with symbols of swirling air and celestial rings, likely meant to represent the layers of the atmosphere. The structure's topmost chamber, open to the sky, is known as the Window of the Wind, a sacred point where prayers for good weather are still performed. Even centuries later, pilots in Hoenn begin long-distance flights with an old ritual, tracing a spiral pattern in the air, an homage to Rayquaza's eternal orbit. Weather researchers speak of the Rayquaza cycle, an informal term for the natural oscillation between wet and dry seasons that stabilize Hoenn's tropical climate. In art, Rayquaza's serpentine form appears coiled around the planet like a guardian spirit, its rings glowing like constellations. The relationship between Rayquaza and humanity has always been defined by distance. Unlike Groudon or Kyogre, which can be reached through exploration of land or sea, Rayquaza dwells far beyond the clouds. To meet it is to transcend ordinary limits, to climb, to ascend, to understand the vastness of the sky. This symbolic climb is mirrored by the player's journey up the Sky Pillar, each broken floor testing patience and balance, until finally the summit reveals a quiet dragon resting among sunlight. In terms of sound design, Rayquaza's cry blends natural and synthetic tones. Developers revealed that it was created by layering recordings of wind tunnels, reverse thunder, and metallic resonance. The result is a sound that seems both organic and alien, evoking a presence that belongs everywhere and nowhere. The cry lasts longer than most Pokémon sounds, a deliberate choice to emphasize its majesty and timelessness. One of the subtler details in its characterization lies in its ability to breathe within the ozone layer. The Pokédex implies that its body composition allows it to convert atmospheric particles into oxygen, essentially allowing it to digest air. This adaptation connects back to its mythic role as the regulator of life, turning the very sky into sustenance. Its scales, too, serve a scientific purpose within lore. Researchers in the Pokemon world hypothesize that the crystalline filaments embedded in its skin refract sunlight to protect it from solar radiation, functioning much like the ozone itself. This physical reflection of its symbolic role makes Rayquaza one of the most elegantly designed legendaries in the entire series. Every aspect of its body corresponds to the natural system it preserves. In mythology, Rayquaza has often been likened to the Ouroboros, the serpent that encircles the world, symbolizing eternity and renewal. The Hoenn version of this motif is less self-devouring and more encompassing. Rayquaza doesn't consume itself, but rather guards the planet by orbiting it endlessly. Ancient scholars referred to it as the circle that has no edge, a poetic way of saying that peace, like flight, has no endpoint, only continuation. When it intervenes during the primal reversion crisis, its arrival is described in the Delta episode records as a line of light that split the sky into calm and storm. Even the text's rhythm mirrors the visual of the cutscene, with Rayquaza descending between Kyogre's waves and Groudon's fire, its emerald form glowing brighter than the sun. That imagery captures the entire essence of Hoenn's mythology. Three forces, eternally bound by conflict, yet destined for balance. Rayquaza's relationship with its mega form adds a layer of spiritual symbolism. Whereas most Pokemon require a Megastone as an external catalyst, Rayquaza achieves transformation through internal resonance, proof that harmony with its own nature is enough. This self-sufficiency has often been interpreted as a metaphor for enlightenment, the idea that balance comes not from external tools, but inner understanding. In competitive battles, Mega Rayquaza stands apart from every other Pokemon. Its strength was so overwhelming that it was placed in a separate tier entirely, a solitary category above even the most powerful legendaries. This unique standing mirrors its narrative role, beyond comparison, beyond rivalry, existing as a stabilizer rather than a challenger. Players often describe using it as exhilarating but humbling. Its dominance comes with responsibility, as if commanding the sky itself. In art and sculpture, Rayquaza is most often depicted emerging from clouds, coiling in a circular pattern with its head directed downward, an echo of its first descent in legend. The pattern of its glowing body rings often forms the basis of weather symbolism in Hoenn culture. Children's mobiles and festival banners use the same spiral motifs, representing safety during storms. Even in quiet corners of the Pokemon world, whispers of its influence linger. Some fishermen say that if the sunset sky turns green, it means Rayquaza has passed overhead, calming a storm before it could reach the shore. Pilots who see strange ripples in the clouds sometimes log them as Rayquaza trails, a playful superstition that has persisted for decades. Perhaps the most enduring truth about Rayquaza is its restraint. Despite its immeasurable power, enough to quell gods and split the sky, it chooses peace over domination. Its story is not one of conquest but stewardship, reminding trainers and scholars alike that strength, when guided by serenity, becomes something divine. When night falls over, Hoenn and the stars begin to pierce the dark. It is said that one of them is not a star at all, but Rayquaza, circling quietly above the world it has sworn to protect. And as long as that glimmer remains, the people of Hoenn sleep knowing that balance endures, that somewhere high above the rain and the fire, the guardian of the sky still breathes. Long before Pokeballs, Before the first league challenge or the word trainer even existed, Hoenn was a land defined by myth. To its earliest people, the world wasn't divided into science and legend. The land itself was alive, its mountains and tides each a story told in motion. At the center of all those stories stood three beings: Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza, known collectively as the Weather Trio. Their names were whispered not as titles of fear, but as elements of life itself. Archaeologists studying Hoenn's oldest ruins believe that the people who first settled the region were drawn there by its unique geography, fertile volcanic soil, abundant rainfall, and steady ocean currents. In other words, they were drawn to the balance created by the trio's lingering energy. Though they would never see the creatures themselves, their presence was felt in every harvest, every storm, every tremor beneath the ground. To the ancients, weather wasn't random, it was communication. When the wind shifted, they said Rayquaza had turned in its sleep. When rain fell after a drought, Kyogre had smiled. And when the earth quaked, it was Groudon stretching beneath the crust. The earliest depictions of the trio come from the Cave of Origin and the Sky Pillar, both sacred spaces still standing today. The murals show a triangular pattern: Groudon below on the left, Kyogre below on the right, and Rayquaza above them, forming a cycle of power that rotates clockwise. The layout wasn't just aesthetic. Ancient scholars discovered that the triangle aligns perfectly with real-world geography. Mount Chimney represents Groudon's domain, the Marine Trench represents Kyogre's, and the Sky Pillar marks Rayquaza's. This alignment reinforces that the myths were never detached from the land. They were maps, teaching people where to live, where to fish, and where not to dig. In these old stories, Groudon and Kyogre are rarely described as evil. They are willful and vast, but they are also seen as guardians of their realms. When they fight, it isn't to destroy each other, but to maintain the world's shape. The Hoenn creation tale, called the Song of Balance, describes this beautifully. When the sea grew heavy, the land rose to bear it. When the land grew weary, the sky bent down to calm it. And when all fell silent, the wind carried their dreams. That final line about the wind carrying dreams has been interpreted as a reference to Rayquaza's intervention, the sky's way of remembering harmony when the earth and ocean forget. One of the most striking things about the Hoenn myths is how consistent they are across generations. Even in isolated villages like Log, which floats above the sea on ancient rafts, oral traditions about the great green dragon who sleeps in the sun's shadow remain virtually unchanged from versions found on stone tablets inland. That level of preservation suggests deep reverence, or perhaps direct ancestral experience with the forces they described. Evidence from ruins indicates that the ancient Hoenn civilization didn't simply worship these beings, but sought to understand their cycles. Inscriptions found in the granite cave describe the energy of the world as something measurable, a concept eerily close to modern scientific understanding of natural energy. They believed the trio were physical manifestations of this energy, each representing a form: magma, water, and air. When the balance between these forms shifted too far, disasters occurred. But when all three aligned, the world entered what they called the Age of Stillness, a time of perfect climate when harvests were plentiful and the stars were visible for weeks without interruption. The people's reverence extended to architecture. Hoenn's temples and monuments were built with deliberate alignment to the trio's symbols. The Sky Pillar, with its endless spiral, represents Rayquaza's eternal orbit and the ascent from chaos to calm. The Cave of Origin symbolizes Groudon's domain of creation, descending deep into the earth as if returning to the planet's heart. Meanwhile, The ocean sanctuaries near Pasifidlog, now mostly submerged, were dedicated to Kyogre, their stone floors engraved with swirling patterns that mirrored tidal movements. Even after these temples fell into ruin, their influence shaped Hoenn's modern cities. Suetopolis, constructed within a massive crater lake, sits literally at the meeting point of water and land, a silent monument to the trio's truce. Its founder, according to the region's archives, intentionally built the city there to honor the idea that peace can exist even where destruction once did. The glowing blue crystals embedded in Suetopolis's walls were formed from natural mega energy, a reminder of the primal events that once nearly tore the world apart. During the primal reversion crisis, when Groudon and Kyogre reawakened, many Hoenn citizens reportedly experienced déjà vu-like dreams. Some described hearing distant thunder or seeing green light above the clouds moments before Rayquaza appeared. Modern scientists dismissed these as mass hysteria, but elders in Pasifidlog called them echoes, remnants of the old link between humanity and the primal forces of the world. Even now, some believe that those with unusually strong empathy toward Pokémon can feel the storm coming, not as a weather pattern, but as a spiritual tremor. Rayquaza's intervention in that crisis redefined its status. Before, it was myth. Afterward, it became proof. Satellite readings confirmed an unidentified form entering the upper atmosphere during the event, moving faster than any known creature or machine. Its energy readings matched descriptions of Mega Rayquaza. For the first time, the modern world could measure what myth had only described. Yet even with data, the sense of awe remained. The people of Hoenn didn't see these readings as science replacing faith. They saw it as faith being verified by science. Following the crisis, a new field of study called climatic mythology emerged in Hoenn's universities, blending environmental science with historical anthropology. Researchers began to catalog every weather phenomenon associated with the trio: extreme droughts near Laveridge, sudden tidal surges off Slateport, and rare green auroras above Fortree. Each event was compared against ancient records, and in every case, patterns matched. The conclusion was humbling. Even thousands of years later, the trio's influence persisted. The trio's symbolism also extends to personality and philosophy. Groudon's steadfastness represents discipline and persistence, the ability to endure hardship. Kyogre's endless waves symbolize empathy and renewal, the acceptance that change is constant, and Rayquaza's poise in the sky stands for clarity, the stillness that allows understanding to form. Together, they create a moral triad that ancient Hoenn societies lived by. Their teachings were simple: be firm, be kind, be calm. That balance is the heart of peace. In Pokémon training traditions, echoes of this philosophy remain. Gym leaders like Flannery, Wallace, and Winona, though aligned with different types, often reference the trio in their battle quotes and team strategies. Flannery's use of sunlight-based tactics and Wallace's mastery of rain aren't just competitive choices. They're cultural inheritances, reflections of Groudon and Kyogre's eternal dance. Even the modern Hoenn League insignia, a circular emblem divided into 3 swirling colors, is a direct nod to the weather trio. The green center, often overlooked, represents Rayquaza's unseen guidance. The red and blue outer curves symbolize land and sea locked in motion, always circling but never colliding. It's a subtle but enduring reminder that the region's identity was shaped not by conflict, but by coexistence. In festivals across Hoenn, the trio's legacy is celebrated each year during the Solstice of Calm, an event marking the longest day when sunlight and rain often coincide. The festival begins at dawn with a ritual pouring of water onto volcanic rock, a symbolic gesture uniting Groudon and Kyogre. Later, at sunset, paper dragons are released into the sky, their glowing lanterns drifting upward in homage to Rayquaza. The belief is that as long as the lanterns rise steadily, the coming year will be balanced and fruitful. Art and music also preserve their story. Traditional Hoenn instruments called wind harps are tuned to mimic the sound of Rayquaza's cry, using vibrating metal wires stretched inside wooden frames. When the wind passes through them, they emit a haunting, ethereal tone that villagers describe as the Song of Calm. Likewise, old lullabies sung to children mention Kyogre's waves carrying dreams and Groudon's heat keeping them warm through the night. Even in modern pop culture, the Weather Trio continues to inspire. Trainers decorate their Pokénavs with charms resembling the blue and red orbs. Jewelry stores in Lily Cove sell rings etched with Rayquaza's spiral pattern as symbols of eternal peace. And deep-sea divers often leave offerings of coral or shells near supposed Kyogre habitats, gestures of gratitude for safe voyages through the unpredictable ocean. Perhaps the most enduring mystery of the Weather Trio is that, even in a world where people have caught and trained them, their essence remains untamed. Each time a Rayquaza is captured in the modern era, it soon returns to the sky. Groudon disappears back into the earth, and Kyogre into the abyss. They seem to allow humanity brief understanding, but never full possession. That quiet refusal ensures that the myth never truly ends. The people of Hoenn have long accepted that the trio's story isn't a tale of dominance, it's a cycle. Land grows, water flows, and sky watches. As the song of balance ends, when the sky forgets, the sea will sing. When the sea forgets, the land will rise. And when all three remember, the world will rest again. That rest, that fragile calm between storms, is the legacy of the Weather Trio. Not gods, not monsters, but memories of a time when the world still spoke to itself through fire, rain, and wind. And even now, when thunder rolls over Hoenn's horizon, some swear they can hear three distinct echoes, one deep like earth, one soft like waves, and one distant, a whisper in the clouds, reminding the world to breathe. Long before Pokeballs or the League, before humans and Pokemon forged partnerships, there was a time that Hoenn's historians call the Primal Era, an age when natural energy flowed freely across the planet, unrestrained and immeasurable. The world was raw and unfinished then, pulsing with heat, water, and wind that never ceased. It was during this time that the forces now known as Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza first came into being, shaped from the world's unbalanced elements. Their stories are not tales of birth in the biological sense, but of energy taking form, consciousness emerging from chaos. The ancients described this period as both magnificent and terrifying. Land masses were still forming, volcanoes erupted daily, rain fell for weeks, then stopped for years. The sea swallowed mountains and then retreated without reason. To early humanity, this was not weather, it was war. They named the endless storm the Great Clash, a struggle between sea and land so violent that even the sky bled with lightning. According to texts later found within the Sky Pillar's lower sanctum, the Primal Era ended not with victory, but with exhaustion. Groudon and Kyogre, having fought for eons, grew weary. Their powers burned themselves out, and both fell into deep sleep, Groudon beneath layers of magma, Kyogre within the ocean trench. The energy they once consumed lingered, crystallized by the world into two relics, the red orb and the blue orb. These orbs pulsed faintly, warm to the touch, and carried the same resonance as the planet's heart. To the people of ancient Hoenn, these orbs were divine artifacts. Early shamans guarded them within volcanic and underwater temples, believing that whoever touched them could speak with the land or sea itself. Some legends claim that those chosen by the orbs gained visions of the primal Pokemon's memories, vast, wordless dreams of tectonic shifts and tides, sensations beyond human comprehension. The orbs also served as the earliest record of natural balance. When storms gathered over the ocean, the blue orb glowed faintly. When heat waves struck the land, the red orb shone. Their alternating rhythms taught the ancients that energy flowed in cycles, not chaos. And when both glowed at once, it meant Rayquaza was stirring, a signal that the sky would soon intervene. Millennia passed. The orbs changed hands countless times, each generation interpreting them differently. Some saw them as tools for control, others as sacred relics meant never to be touched. The Draconid people, an ancient tribe who lived among the cliffs near Meteor Falls, believed the orbs were fragments of a fallen star, pieces of the same meteor that once fed Rayquaza. They built the Sky Pillar to honor the dragon, carving spiraling stairways meant to mirror its celestial orbit. Their teachings were clear. The sky is patient, the land is proud, the sea is deep. Touch neither, for they remember. Despite this warning, not all who found the orbs treated them with reverence. As human civilization advanced, curiosity turned into ambition. The idea of awakening Groudon or Kyogre became a symbol of ultimate power, the ability to command nature itself. The earliest recorded attempt occurred in a civilization now lost beneath Route 135, where researchers unearthed a dormant red orb and attempted to harness its energy for agriculture. The resulting drought lasted for decades. Later civilizations, aware of the devastation, sought instead to seal the orbs permanently. They forged bindings of sacred metals, the first sealing rituals, using the heat of Mount Chimney and the salt of Pseutopolis's crater lake. The process trapped the orbs within stone chambers, guarded by those who swore oaths never to let them resurface. But history, as always, has a way of repeating. The orbs were rediscovered by modern groups like Team Magma and Team Aqua, whose contrasting ideologies reflected the same imbalance that once consumed the world. Team Magma's belief was that expanding the land would bring prosperity, more space for life, more room to grow. Team Aqua, in contrast, viewed the sea as purity incarnate, a return to natural order through the cleansing of excess land. Each side held fragments of truth, but ignored the others. In their rivalry, they mirrored Groudon and Kyogre's ancient feud almost perfectly. When both teams succeeded in awakening their respective Pokémon, the world once again felt the weight of primal reversion. The skies darkened, the seas surged, and Hoenn trembled, but this time, humanity was there to witness it, to see myth unfold in real time. The Pokémon Omega, Ruby, and Alpha Sapphire retellings describe the atmosphere as so charged with natural energy that even non-legendary Pokémon began to react, their forms glowing faintly as though remembering a buried past. Primal reversion itself remains one of the most mysterious phenomena in Pokémon science. Unlike Mega Evolution, which is catalyzed by a trainer's bond and a keystone, primal reversion is a reawakening, not an evolution. The red and blue orbs contain natural energy from the time of the planet's creation. When exposed to it, Groudon and Kyogre revert to their original forms, gaining overwhelming power but losing emotional restraint. The scientists of Moss Deep once described it as the world momentarily remembering its wildness. In their primal states, Groudon's body radiates magma hotter than the sun's surface, and Kyogre's rains become so intense they can alter sea levels globally. Both are unsustainable forms. The planet itself cannot tolerate their continued existence. That is why Rayquaza's return is not just myth but necessity. Its descent from the stratosphere marks the return of equilibrium. During the primal reversion crisis, when Rayquaza appeared, witnesses described a sudden shift in the air, not just calm but relief. The endless lightning vanished, replaced by silence so deep that even the ocean paused. The meteorite Rayquaza consumed to achieve its megaform burned in the sky like a second sun. From that moment, history remembered not destruction, but restoration. After the crisis, scholars from the Devon Corporation began investigating the residual energy left in the orbs. They discovered faint waves of radiation matching the natural patterns of geothermal and tidal energy, proof that the orbs were literal cores of the planet's balance. Further study revealed that these energies pulse in harmony with the moon's gravitational cycle. This revelation connected Kyogre's tides and Groudon's magma flow to a shared cosmic rhythm, with Rayquaza serving as the regulator between them, a celestial conductor keeping Earth's elements in tune. But the moral of the primal reversion story goes beyond science. Hoenn's people learned something far older than technology, the difference between mastery and harmony. The ancients sought communion with nature. Modernity sought control. In the end, both failed until they remembered balance. The orbs, once weapons of ambition, were returned to rest within sealed chambers beneath Sutopolis, guarded again not by greed, but by gratitude. The return of the orbs sparked a quiet cultural revival. Festivals now honor the trio not as gods to be feared, but as forces to be thanked. Farmers pour seawater over volcanic soil before planting, a symbolic gesture of unity between Groudon and Kyogre. Airships that leave from Slateport carry small meteoric fragments etched with Rayquaza's spiral, a blessing for safe journeys through turbulent skies. Even Pokémon training philosophy began to change. Trainers who study the Weather Trio often emphasize environmental awareness and emotional balance. The idea is that to truly understand power, one must also understand when to rest. Groudon's strength is in patience, Kyogre's in compassion, Rayquaza's in serenity. 3 lessons for both trainer and Pokémon alike. Perhaps the most enduring symbol of the Primal Era's lesson is the crater lake of Sutopolis City. Formed by a meteor impact, the same event believed to have brought mega energy to Earth, it represents the meeting of destruction and renewal. Beneath that water lies the Cave of Origin, where Groudon and Kyogre were last calmed. Locals call it the world's first reflection, believing that when you look into it, you're not seeing the sky above, but the memory of the balance below. In the centuries that followed, researchers found traces of primal energy in other regions, faint echoes in Sinnoh's mountains and the Alolan volcanoes. These findings suggest that the forces of land, sea, and sky were never confined to Hoenn alone. Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza may be the greatest expressions of balance, but their essence flows everywhere. Every storm, every earthquake, every sunrise carries a whisper of their ancient conversation. Even now, as modern science expands its reach, the people of Hoenn hold on to humility. When the summer rains grow too long, they leave offerings of coral on the beach. When the ground trembles, they light candles in laverage. And when the sky clears after the storm, they look upward, not in fear, but in quiet gratitude, knowing that somewhere far above, the Green Guardian watches, ensuring that the dance between land and sea continues. The primal reversion era taught humanity that nature doesn't obey, it collaborates. To live is to participate in that rhythm, to find one's place between fire and water, chaos and calm. Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza are more than legends. They are reminders that balance is not achieved once. It is maintained, moment by moment, with patience and respect. Though the legends of Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza were born in the lush islands and volcanic coasts of Hoenn, their echoes carried far beyond its borders. To understand their impact, one must look not just at history, but at memory, the way the world itself seems to remember their balance. As human civilization spread and new regions emerged, faint reflections of the weather trio began to appear everywhere, as if the rhythm they created continued to resonate through every continent and sky. In the distant region of Sinnoh, far to the north, ancient scholars wrote of a cosmic beginning. Their myths centered on Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, gods of time, space, and distortion. But beneath those celestial layers lies something strikingly familiar: the division of the world into three fundamental forces. The Canalave Library texts, one of the oldest surviving myth compilations, describe the planet's formation in three stages. The land was born, the sea followed, and the wind came to rest upon both. Scholars believe this phrasing is not coincidence but inheritance, passed down orally from explorers who once lived in Hoenn before migrating north. The triad of earth, water, and sky, once embodied by the weather trio, found a new expression in Sinnoh's cosmic deities. Where Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza represented physical balance, Sinnoh's trinity evolved into metaphysical order, time, space, and the dimension between. One of the most fascinating discoveries linking the two regions is a fragment of a mural found in the Spear Pillar's foundation caverns. Beneath the later carvings of Dialga and Palkia, researchers uncovered a faint underlayer depicting a serpent-like creature coiled around a glowing sphere, an image unmistakably resembling Rayquaza. Radiocarbon dating confirmed that the layer predates Sinnoh's organized mythology by several centuries. It seems that before the people of Sinnoh gazed at the stars for their gods, they first looked to the sky itself, and what they saw may have been the same green guardian that once calmed Hoenn's storms. Beyond Sinnoh, the influence of the weather trio's archetypes appears again in Alola, where the island's myths revolve around balance between natural forces. There, Solgaleo and Lunala rule over day and night, while Tapu Koko, Tapu Fini, Tapu Bulu, and Tapu Lele protect the land and seas. Yet, Alolan texts from the Seafolk archives contain a tale that sounds remarkably like Hoenn's primal story. It speaks of a sleeping ocean spirit and a mountain heart who battled until a serpent of light divided them. The language differs, but the pattern remains the same. The Alolans' reverence for coexistence between volcano and coral reef, between fire and tide, feels like an echo of Hoenn's lesson, filtered through new landscapes. In Galar, too, the marks of Hoenn's myth survive in unexpected ways. The enormous storm that encircled the region's history, the Darkest Day, shares striking thematic parallels with Hoenn's Great Clash. In both tales, overwhelming natural power threatened to consume the world, and salvation came from the skies. Where Hoenn's guardian was Rayquaza, Galar's were Zacian and Zamazenta, twin champions of balance who quelled chaos through unity. Some historians propose that the ancient Galarian scholars were aware of Rayquaza's story and reshaped it into their own context, emphasizing brotherhood rather than singular guardianship. Environmental evidence strengthens the connection further. Galar's upper atmosphere contains unusual bands of charged particles, remnants of the Eternamax phenomenon, similar to the natural energy once associated with Hoenn's ozone layer. When scientists compared meteorite samples from both regions, they discovered identical mineral traces. The conclusion was clear: both crises may have shared a cosmic origin. The same type of meteor that empowered Rayquaza's mega evolution might also have seeded Eternatus's emergence. Across continents, the same celestial energy seemed to appear again and again, reshaping myths into new forms, linking sky and earth through shared ancestry. But it isn't just the heavens that carry Hoenn's echo, the people do too. The Draconid clan, once thought extinct, is now believed to have spread fragments of their culture throughout the world. Linguistic studies show that words related to dragons and weather in several regional dialects trace back to old Draconid roots. The Johto term Tenrai, meaning heavenly guardian, and the Sinohan Reich, meaning sacred wind, may both originate from Rayquaza, the Draconid pronunciation of Rayquaza's name. This linguistic drift shows how memory transforms into language, ensuring that even when stories fade, their sound persists. Archaeological parallels further deepen the connection. The weathered temple atop Mount Pyre in Hoenn bears architectural similarities to Sinnoh's Celestic ruins and Johto's bell tower. All three structures spiral upward, with designs meant to lead the eye toward the sky. Each was dedicated to a being that bridged the mortal and divine: Rayquaza in Hoenn, Ho-Oh in Johto, and the sky deities of Sinnoh. These towers collectively express humanity's oldest instinct, to reach toward the heavens not in conquest, but in reverence. In the centuries after the Primal Era, Hoenn's myth became a philosophical touchstone. Scholars across the regions began referencing the Hoenn balance, a theory suggesting that every major elemental or cosmic trio in the Pokémon world follows the same foundational structure: creation, destruction, and restoration. For Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza, that structure manifests as land, sea, and sky. For Sinnoh's deities, it becomes time, space, and distortion. For Unova's Tau trio, Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem, it's truth, ideals, and neutrality. Even the Alolan Tapu follow this rhythm in miniature. The lesson is always the same. Harmony is achieved only when opposites are acknowledged and guided by a unifying presence. These parallels raise a profound question. Are these similarities coincidence or evidence of something deeper? Some modern theorists argue that the world's legendary Pokémon might not be separate beings at all, but different expressions of the same primal forces. Under this idea, the Weather Trio are not unique, but archetypal embodiments of nature's endless need to balance extremes. Their energy may manifest differently across regions, but the underlying rhythm, the dance of fire and water, sky and stone, remains eternal. Evidence of this can be seen in environmental behavior. Following the events of the Hoenn crisis, global satellite readings detected small but measurable fluctuations in atmospheric energy across the world. Rainfall patterns in Unova briefly stabilized, Alola's ocean currents shifted, and Galar experienced its calmest storm season in decades. These coincidences suggest that Rayquaza's act of balance may have resonated planet-wide, a reminder that the world's systems are far more connected than once believed. Even culturally, Hoenn's influence became a quiet constant. In Sinnoh's summer solstice ceremonies, dancers reenact the clash of land and sea with red and blue silk ribbons, while a third dancer, dressed in green, moves between them, a direct homage to the triad of balance. In Galar, artisans craft stained glass depictions of serpents circling suns, symbols of guardianship clearly inspired by Rayquaza's image. And in Unova, storytellers around Lacunosa town recite a tale of the dragon who calmed the storm above the mountain, a narrative that merges their own dragon mythology with Hoenn's sky legend. Science, too, began to treat Hoenn's myths with renewed seriousness. The Moss Deep Space Center, once devoted purely to astronomy, now collaborates with the Canalave Library Institute in Sinnoh to study meteor impacts and atmospheric anomalies. Their joint research aims to map the distribution of primal energy across the planet, hypothesizing that the weather trio's awakening may be part of a larger global cycle triggered by celestial patterns. If true, it would mean that Rayquaza's descent was not an isolated miracle, but one movement in a universal rhythm that has guided life since the beginning. And yet, even amid all this knowledge, mystery remains. No one knows what would happen if the trio were ever disturbed again. The orbs that once bound them now rest, sealed beneath the Cave of Origin, guarded by the descendants of the Draconids. The seals are reinforced by natural mega-energy fields, designed to repel interference. Scientists call these seals resonance locks, but the locals prefer an older name, the rest of the world. It's said that as long as the land breathes, the sea moves, and the sky drifts, the locks will hold, for the trio are part of every heartbeat, every wave, every breeze. In many ways, the Weather Trio's story became the moral spine of the entire Pokémon world. Each region has its conflicts, its gods, its disasters, but the idea of balance, of coexistence through difference, traces directly back to Hoenn. The ancients didn't see Groudon's lava as evil, nor Kyogre's flood as punishment. They saw necessary chaos, each testing the patience of the other until Rayquaza restored their rhythm. That lesson persists in every generation that studies nature, every trainer who seeks balance between strength and kindness. As technology advanced and humans began reaching further into space, echoes of Rayquaza's myth reappeared in new form. Satellites launched from Moss Deep occasionally capture streaks of green light moving far above the atmosphere. Some dismiss them as meteors, others as cosmic interference. But among Hoenn's elder sailors, there's only one explanation. Rayquaza is still watching. They believe that it circles the planet endlessly, not out of duty, but devotion, a being so ancient that even when the stars shift, it remembers the shape of the world it once saved. And so, from the volcanoes of Hoenn to the peaks of Sinnoh and the coral shores of Alola, the echoes of the Weather Trio continue to hum through the planet's core. They are the silent rhythm behind every wave, every tremor, every breath of wind. No matter how far humanity travels or how much it learns, the truth remains simple. The balance they created still holds. The land endures, the sea flows, the sky watches, and somewhere high above it all, an emerald shadow glides quietly across the clouds, patient, peaceful, eternal. Across the centuries, the myths of Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza have done more than explain the origins of Hoenn's land, sea, and sky. They have shaped the very culture and consciousness of its people. While most regions revere their legendaries as distant deities or symbols of power, Hoenn's relationship with its weather trio is far more intimate. They are woven into every part of daily life, in architecture, in art, in music, even in the quiet ways people measure time and tell stories to their children before bed. The trio are not gods in the traditional sense. They are metaphors for existence itself, the three moods of the world: calm, chaos, and the quiet balance that binds them. One of the earliest signs of their cultural influence can be found in Hoenn's art. Cave paintings in the coastal cliffs near Route 131 depict stylized waves curling into mountains, divided by a streak of green pigment representing wind. These ancient motifs later evolved into Hoenn's modern aesthetic: flowing lines, spiral shapes, and triangular compositions that mirror the balance between the three forces. Even the League's official logo, a circle split into red, blue, and green segments, is a direct nod to the trio's eternal cycle. The emblem's design isn't merely decorative, it's philosophical. The circle symbolizes the planet, the colors its elements, and their seamless blending the ideal of coexistence. In traditional Hoenn poetry, the weather trio often appear as characters in moral tales. Groudon represents determination and perseverance, the strength to stand firm when storms test the ground. Kyogre embodies emotion and empathy, the willingness to let go, to forgive, and to renew. Rayquaza symbolizes clarity and restraint, the ability to rise above conflict without abandoning those below. These archetypes became central to a literary genre called Kaien no Shi, or flame poems, short reflective verses recited before festivals or major life events. A common wedding blessing, still spoken today, echoes their legacy. May your hearts meet like sea and shore, and your calm rise like wind after storm. The trio also left a profound mark on Hoenn's religion and philosophy. Ancient temples in Sutopolis and Pacifidlog were once sites of worship not for the Pokémon themselves, but for the virtues they embodied. Pilgrims traveled long distances to leave offerings of earth, salt, and air, symbolic gifts to the balance of the world rather than to deities demanding devotion. The priests of Old Hoenn called themselves Keepers of the Pulse, believing that the planet had a heartbeat that echoed the rhythm of Groudon's steps, Kyogre's tides, and Rayquaza's flight. Meditation rituals involved breathing in sequences that mimicked thunder, rain, and wind, an early form of elemental prayer designed to align the body's rhythm with nature's. In the modern age, these practices survive in gentler forms. The Festival of Balance, celebrated annually in Sutopolis City, transforms the crater lake into a canvas of light. Citizens release floating lanterns shaped like orbs, red for land, blue for sea, and green for sky. The lanterns drift across the water, their reflections merging into a shimmering spectrum that represents unity. Children are told to make a wish on whichever color drifts closest to them, as each symbolizes a blessing. Courage from Groudon, kindness from Kyogre, and wisdom from Rayquaza. The trio's influence extends into music, too. Traditional Hoenn instruments, such as the Tide Drum, Magma Flute, and Sky Harp, are played in trios, each representing one element. The rhythm begins with slow, grounding beats of the Tide Drum, mimicking waves, followed by the sharp resonance of the Magma Flute to symbolize rising land. Finally, the Sky Harp enters softly, weaving through both, a reminder that harmony comes only when sound and silence coexist. Many orchestras across the Pokémon world have adapted this pattern into their compositions, especially for ceremonial or reflective pieces. Even the Pokémon Center lullabies in Hoenn are tuned to a specific tonal pattern based on the frequencies of the trio's cries, meant to subconsciously relax listeners with a sense of balance and peace. Philosophically, Hoenn's thinkers long debated what the Weather Trio represent on a moral level. Some viewed them as nature's personification of human emotion, Groudon as anger and ambition, Kyogre as sorrow and empathy, and Rayquaza as understanding and forgiveness. Others saw them as a reflection of the scientific truth that all life depends on equilibrium. One of the region's most influential texts, the Journal of the Deep Sky, written by the philosopher Sadao of Suopolis, summarized it beautifully. The land teaches us to build, the sea to heal, the sky to endure. To live as Hoenn lives is to carry all three within the heart. These words became so central to Hoenn's cultural identity that they are inscribed on the interior of the Pokémon League's Hall of Champions, etched along the stone arches above the battlefield. Many visiting trainers only notice the decorative script, unaware that it carries centuries of wisdom distilled into a single philosophy. Victory means nothing if the world around you falls out of balance. The trio's presence is also felt in the architecture of Hoenn major cities. Sutopolis, built inside a volcanic crater filled with water, stands as a literal monument to coexistence, land encircling sea beneath open sky. Slateport's harbor layout mirrors Kyogre's fins, curving outward to welcome the tides, while Laverage's bathhouses channel geothermal vents inspired by Groudon's slumbering power. Even Fortree City, suspended among treetops, draws from Rayquaza's grace, its walkways designed to sway gently with the wind rather than resist it. This architectural harmony reflects an unspoken belief that human progress should move with nature, not against it. In education and science, Hoenn's curriculum often begins with the Weather Trio as a metaphor for environmental responsibility. Children learn not just about ecosystems, but about empathy for the elements. Teachers tell them that the land breathes, the sea listens, and the sky remembers. Environmental awareness campaigns often use the trio's imagery, posters showing Groudon cooling volcanoes to represent conservation, or Kyogre nurturing coral reefs as a symbol of renewal. In Moss Deep's space research programs, the orbit of Rayquaza is studied alongside meteorology, reminding scientists that the sky is more than data, it's history. Modern trainers, too, carry fragments of the trio's legacy in their journey philosophy. Many Hoenn gym leaders subtly embody one of the three forces. Flannery channels Groudon's fiery determination, Wallace reflects Kyogre's fluid grace, and Winona mirrors Rayquaza's calm command of the skies. None of them directly invoke the trio, but their mannerisms and battle styles clearly reflect its influence. Even the Elite Four are said to represent the trio's extended balance. Sydney's unpredictability like the storm, Phoebe's serenity like the after-rain stillness, Glacia's endurance like the frozen sea, and Drake's mastery of air and motion. Together, they represent humanity's ability to live within nature's cycle rather than above it. Cultural artisans across generations have also drawn inspiration from the Weather Trio's symbolism. Painters depict Kyogre not as a monster of the deep, but as a luminescent whale beneath a tranquil moon. Groudon is often painted sleeping within crystal caverns, surrounded by molten light that feels more maternal than menacing. Rayquaza is almost always painted in motion, winding through clouds like a guardian spirit, its eyes half closed, a symbol of strength tempered by restraint. The trio rarely appear together in art, except in murals depicting balance restored. This selective separation serves as a metaphor for life itself. Harmony exists not in unity at all times, but in distance maintained with mutual respect. In modern Hoenn literature and media, the Weather Trio continue to inspire storytelling. Popular novels describe descendants of the Draconid clan who protect the orbs, while television specials reinterpret ancient myths as parables for contemporary themes, environmental care, emotional growth, and humility before nature. Even video games within the Pokémon world have incorporated them symbolically. The in-universe arcade title Balance Breaker features 3 glowing triangles that players must align to restore stability, an obvious homage to Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. But beyond art, architecture, and entertainment, the most profound place the trio lives on is within Hoenn's sense of identity. To be from Hoenn is to believe that peace isn't passive, it's an active choice, a rhythm maintained through mindfulness and compassion. Every coastal town, every mountain village, every floating raft community feels connected by this idea. The storms may differ, the soil may shift, but the balance always returns. When asked about their philosophy, many Hoenn citizens simply say, "We live between fire and flood." It's not an expression of fear, it's one of trust. That trust defines the region's calm resilience. After hurricanes, the people rebuild quietly, saying that Kyogre is cleansing the old to make way for the new. After volcanic eruptions, they gather at dawn to offer thanks to Groudon for renewing the soil. And when the skies clear and the first rays of sunlight shimmer over calm seas, they whisper a single word of gratitude: Rayquaza. Even Pokemon themselves seem to carry echoes of this cultural awareness. Pelipper and Wingull often nest along cliffs shaped like Rayquaza's silhouette, while Camerupt herds rest near cooled lava plains that were once Groudon's domain. Whiscash burrow into deep riverbeds, their tremors creating miniature underwater storms that Hoenn locals call Kyogre's laughter. These small, natural rhythms are seen as reminders that the trio's presence isn't confined to legend. It still lives in every corner of the world, expressed through behavior, through instinct, through balance. Ultimately, the Weather Trio's role in human culture is a story of coexistence, a reminder that understanding nature means understanding ourselves. Groudon teaches courage without arrogance. Kyogre teaches empathy without surrender. Rayquaza teaches serenity without apathy. Together, they form the moral compass of Hoenn: to live fully yet gently, to wield strength with humility, and to remember that balance is not a destination, but a way of being. As night falls over Sutopolis and the lanterns drift across the crater lake, the water reflects the red, blue, and green lights merging into one soft glow. Children point to the sky, watching as the clouds catch the colors and fade into silver moonlight. Somewhere high above, invisible to all but the stars, the real Rayquaza drifts silently through the stratosphere, its long body tracing slow arcs across the horizon. And in that moment, Hoenn breathes, as it always has, between sea and land, beneath the patient sky, in the eternal rhythm of peace. Today, Hoenn stands at a point where science and myth no longer oppose each other, but walk hand in hand. The ancient stories of Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza once seemed like the exaggerated dreams of early civilizations, metaphors for volcanoes, storms, and stars. Yet, with centuries of exploration and study, it has become clear that the old myths were not mere superstition, but poetic descriptions of truths that science is only now beginning to understand. The Weather Trio, once symbols of divine forces, are now recognized as living embodiments of planetary systems. And still, even as satellites map their energy and labs study their resonance, mystery remains, a reminder that understanding the world does not always mean unraveling its wonder. Much of this reconciliation between myth and knowledge began in Moss Deep City, home of the Space Center and the Meteorological Research Division. After the primal reversion incident, scientists there began studying residual atmospheric anomalies across the region. They discovered patterns of energy flux unlike anything previously recorded, invisible waves pulsing between volcanoes, ocean trenches, and the ozone layer. When charted, the readings formed a perfect triangle connecting Mount Chimney, Sutopolis Crater Lake, and the Sky Pillar. The geometric symmetry was too precise to be coincidence. It matched exactly with the ancient murals of the Weather Trio. The conclusion was breathtaking. The myths had mapped real planetary energy channels thousands of years before modern instruments existed. Researchers called this phenomenon the Hoenn Geoatmospheric Resonance, or HAR field. It is believed to be the energetic equilibrium that allows Hoenn's climate to remain uniquely stable despite its volatile geography. When volcanic heat rises too rapidly, the HAR field transfers the excess into the upper atmosphere, where Rayquaza's presence, or perhaps its residual aura, disperses it harmlessly. Similarly, when the ocean's salinity levels drop during heavy rainfall, microcurrents connected to the same field distribute minerals from the seabed upward. Even in a world full of legendaries and miracles, few discoveries have shown such elegant self-sustaining balance. These findings transformed how humanity viewed the trio. They were no longer separate beings intervening from beyond. They were components of the planet's design. Groudon represented geothermal activity, Kyogre the hydrological cycle, and Rayquaza the atmospheric regulator linking the two. The ancients had described their battles as cataclysms, but scientists now see them as natural corrections, like tectonic plates shifting or tides adjusting after a storm. The world breathes through them. However, science didn't erase the sacred, it deepened it. When the Har field was first simulated in Moss Deep's atmospheric chambers, the instruments recorded faint oscillations within the data, pulses resembling rhythmic breathing. At first, researchers dismissed it as interference, but the pattern repeated every 11 minutes, synchronized across every measurement point. It was as if the planet itself inhaled and exhaled. Elder scholars called it Groudon's heartbeat and Kyogre's tide. To them, this was proof that the world was still alive in the same way it had always been. Only now, humanity could listen to its pulse in real time. The discovery of the Har field inspired new ethical discussions in both science and society. How should humanity coexist with powers it can measure but not control? How much interference is too much? After all, if balance is a living system, every act of human progress, from drilling and deforestation to space exploration, risks tilting that equilibrium. As a result, Hoenn passed a landmark policy known as the Balance Act, protecting areas like the Cave of Origin, Sky Pillar, and the surrounding reefs as sanctified bioregions. It was the first legislation in the Pokémon world written jointly by scientists and cultural elders. The law's guiding principle came directly from the old Draconid teachings. To touch the world's pulse, one must first learn to listen. Beyond regulation, modern technology has opened new paths to understanding. In the last decade, the Devon Corporation has developed weather monitoring satellites equipped with primal frequency scanners designed to detect fluctuations in natural energy before they manifest as storms or earthquakes. These scanners are calibrated using data derived from Rayquaza's recorded resonance. When Rayquaza last descended during the meteor event, its frequency registered at an astonishing 244 Hz, a pitch identical to middle C on the human musical scale. Musicians, mystics, and scientists all noticed the same coincidence. The dragon of the skies vibrates at the same tone humanity uses to tune its instruments. To some, this is poetic. To others, it is proof that the universe, in its complexity, still hums in harmony. In parallel, geologists studying Hoenn's crust discovered veins of glowing crystal running beneath Mount Chimney and the seabed near Pseutopolis. The crystals emit low-level radiation that aligns with the same energy wavelengths found in the red and blue orbs. These deposits, named primalite, are believed to be fossilized remnants of the planet's original energy. Fragments left over from the era of the trio's awakening. They are stable, yet reactive, glowing brighter during heavy rainfall or volcanic activity. To the scientific community, primalite provides a tangible connection to myth, a bridge between story and geology. To spiritualists, it's something else entirely, the fossilized memory of balance itself. The Sky Pillar, once seen as little more than a ruin, has become one of the world's most studied natural structures. Researchers discovered that the entire tower acts as an atmospheric conduit, channeling electromagnetic energy upward. The stone itself contains mineral traces found in meteorites, suggesting that it was not built purely by human hands, but assembled using material that fell from space, perhaps gathered by the ancient draconids under Rayquaza's guidance. The spiral shape, when mapped, matches the pattern of the Har field perfectly. Modern sensors placed along its walls detect faint but constant air currents, moving upward at a consistent pace. The tower literally breathes with the wind. Pilgrims who climb it still describe a sense of lightness at its peak, as though the air itself grows gentler, forgiving. In Sutopolis, researchers found similar wonders below the water. The Cave of Origin, long associated with Groudon and Kyogre's slumber, contains coral-like growths that seem to feed on geothermal vents. The microorganisms living there have adapted to both heat and pressure, thriving in conditions that would destroy most known life forms. Scientists call them Triaflora, a name derived from the trio, since each species depends on an environmental condition reflecting one of them. Heat for Groudon, moisture for Kyogre, and oxygen diffusion for Rayquaza. These organisms form brilliant blue and red patterns on the cave walls, and every year, when the temperature shifts during the equinox, they glow in synchrony, merging into a purple hue, a natural celebration of equilibrium. Even with all these discoveries, one of the most puzzling mysteries remains Rayquaza's orbit. Satellites have confirmed that a large serpentine object occasionally passes through the lower thermosphere at speeds too controlled to be debris. The readings always coincide with slight dips in barometric pressure and subtle calm in ocean currents. Though never officially confirmed, most agree Rayquaza still patrols the skies. Its movement is described not as random flight, but deliberate surveillance, following patterns that match ancient migration routes of Wingull and Pelipper, creatures known for navigating storms. It's as if Rayquaza, the guardian of balance, continues to watch the same pathways its lesser kin follow, ensuring that the currents remain stable. Public fascination with the Weather Trio has only deepened as technology advances. Documentaries, university lectures, and museum exhibits blend fact and myth with quiet reverence. Children in Hoenn schools grow up watching planetarium shows where holographic projections of the trio glide through simulated clouds and tides. These aren't just lessons in Pokémon history, they are meditations on coexistence. The narration always ends with the same line: the sky remembers what the earth forgets, and the sea forgives them both. Yet even with all the modern reverence, some scientists express caution. As humanity grows more capable of manipulating weather and climate, the temptation to replicate or even control natural forces increases. In one controversial experiment, a group of researchers at Slateport attempted to artificially simulate primal energy using condensed geothermal plasma. The experiment was immediately halted when it caused local sea levels to fluctuate by over a foot in a matter of hours. The event, known as the False Dawn Incident, became a defining lesson in restraint. It reminded the world that the line between understanding and arrogance is razor thin. In response, the Moss Deep Research Council established a new directive called the Rayquaza Accord, a global pledge among Pokémon scientists never to attempt weather manipulation on a planetary scale. The Accord's guiding principle is engraved on a bronze plaque outside the Space Center. The world does not ask to be commanded, it asks to be heard. Still, scientific curiosity persists, though tempered by respect. Researchers now study the trio's influence through simulation rather than experiment. Computer models recreate their interactions using environmental data. When Groudon's simulated heat rises too sharply, the virtual Kyogre counterbalances with rainfall, and Rayquaza's digital form stabilizes wind pressure. The result is always the same: Left unchecked, the system collapses. Balanced correctly, it thrives indefinitely. The implication is as profound as it is simple. Nature's perfection is not static, it's dynamic harmony, maintained through constant dialogue. For the people of modern Hoenn, this awareness has transformed their daily lives. Green architecture integrates geothermal power, tidal energy, and wind flow into city design. Instead of resisting storms, coastal engineers build flexible barriers that move with the tides, a technique inspired by Kyogre's adaptability. Volcanic energy plants are modeled after Groudon's containment systems, channeling magma without exhausting the land. Even aviation routes are adjusted to minimize interference with Rayquaza's atmospheric pathways. Every innovation carries a quiet nod to the trio that inspired it. Artists, too, have embraced this merging of science and legend. Public sculptures across Hoenn combine natural materials and technological precision. Glass orbs pulsing with simulated magma and mist, illuminated by faint green light. These works are not monuments to power but to partnership, the idea that progress, when guided by humility, becomes a continuation of the same story that began in primal ages. Perhaps the most touching example of this synthesis occurs each year during the Festival of Calm Winds, held in Moss Deep. Scientists, children, and elders gather together on the shoreline to release 3 streams of colored smoke into the air: red, blue, and green. The plumes drift upward and merge in the twilight, forming a soft gray hue, the color of balance. It is said that on clear nights, when the wind is still, a streak of emerald light sometimes crosses the horizon as the final smoke fades. No one knows whether it is Rayquaza or meteor light reflecting off satellites, but no one tries to explain it. They simply watch in silence, grateful, because in the end, even with all their instruments and equations, Hoenn's people know that not everything must be measured. Some truths are felt in the hush before a storm, in the tremor beneath the feet, or in the stillness of the sea when the clouds part. Science can name these forces, can map them, can even predict them, but the why remains a mystery as deep and comforting as the legends that came before. The Weather Trio endure not just as relics of myth or objects of study, but as reminders of coexistence between faith and knowledge, between humanity and the world it inhabits. Their story is the story of every storm that ends in calm, every eruption that brings new life, every gust of wind that clears the sky. Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza are no longer creatures of ancient fear. They are symbols of modern reverence, proof that the oldest myths were never wrong, only waiting to be understood. And so, in this age of satellites and science, Hoenn still dreams beneath their watch. The mountains still breathe, the tides still sing, and the sky still hums softly with emerald light. Somewhere beyond the clouds, Rayquaza circles the world it once saved, content in silence, knowing that its lesson endures, that balance, once found, is the most powerful force of all. As the world drifts into twilight, the story of Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza settles like a quiet tide, ancient yet still alive, old but never forgotten. Their legend is not just about conflict or even about power. It is about the balance that allows all things to exist together, the calm between lightning strikes, the silence after a wave breaks, the peace that follows understanding. The Weather Trio's story is, in truth, the story of life itself, wild, unpredictable, yet somehow always returning to harmony. If you travel across Hoenn at sunset, you can still feel their presence. The land glows with a faint red warmth, the sea deepens into endless blue, and above them both, The sky stretches wide and green at the edge of fading daylight. It's as if the region itself remembers the moment when chaos met peace, when Groudon and Kyogre clashed and Rayquaza descended, a streak of light that turned destruction into stillness. That balance, once restored, became eternal. The world moves forward, but the memory remains in the color of its horizon. Every generation retells the tale differently. To the elders of Pacifidlog, it is a moral about patience that anger and sorrow both destroy if not guided by wisdom. To the storytellers of Sutopolis, it is about forgiveness, the sea learning to respect the mountain that once defied it. And to the Draconid descendants who still live near the Sky Pillar, it is about guardianship, the duty to protect harmony, not through control, but through compassion. No matter how it's told, the ending is always the same. Peace is restored, not when one side wins, but when all three listen to each other again. On calm nights, sailors still whisper the names of the trio as a prayer. Groudon for safety on the shore, Kyogre for gentle tides, Rayquaza for clear skies to guide them home. These aren't superstitions anymore. They're small expressions of gratitude, a way of remembering that even in a world of science and progress, some things are beyond command. The weather will always change, the sea will always rise and fall, and the land will always shift beneath us. All we can do is live within that rhythm, not against it. In the quiet research halls of Moss Deep, scientists still watch the sky. They track pressure changes, temperature gradients, and faint energy signatures. But sometimes, in the late hours when the monitors flicker and the hum of the machine softens, a scientist will step outside and look up. Above the stars, a faint curve of green light will sweep across the darkness, too fast to be a plane, too graceful to be debris. And for a brief moment, all the equations fade away, replaced by a feeling deeper than proof: awe. In that stillness, they remember that knowing the world doesn't mean owning it. It means listening. That lesson has guided Hoenn for generations. Every decision, from how towns are built to how storms are predicted, carries a trace of the Weather Trio's wisdom. The people do not see Groudon as a god of fire, nor Kyogre as a monster of flood, nor Rayquaza as a dragon of punishment. They see them as teachers, reminders that life exists between extremes. Too much fire burns the earth, too much water erases it. Only the wind between them can keep both alive. Children still grow up hearing bedtime stories of the trio, tales not of battles, but of friendship. They imagine Rayquaza teaching the others how to see beyond their strength, or Kyogre calming the land after a storm. The details change, but the message is timeless. The world survives because it learns to forgive itself. When Groudon cools, when Kyogre rests, when Rayquaza returns to the sky, the cycle continues, a soft rhythm older than civilization. There's a saying in Hoenn: the sky bends before it breaks. It comes from the observation that the wind always shifts before a storm arrives, as if the world takes a breath to prepare. The Weather Trio embody that breath. They are the pause before chaos and the calm after. Even in their mightiest moments, they never destroy the world, they renew it. That's why, when the volcanoes quiet and the sea retreats, Hoenn's people don't mourn the damage. They rebuild with reverence, knowing that balance always returns. The ancient Draconid texts describe Rayquaza's descent not as a punishment, but as a reminder that no matter how far apart the earth and sea drift, the sky will always connect them. That idea has become a symbol of unity across the Pokémon world. Every bridge built, every harbor restored, every new region connected by trade or friendship carries the same spirit. The trio's story is no longer confined to Hoenn. It has become part of the global consciousness, a universal myth of reconciliation. Even Pokémon themselves seem to echo this truth. The ground types that thrive near volcanic soil, the water types that dance in the rain, and the flying types that soar through sudden gusts, all of them, knowingly or not, continue the balance the trio began. Each habitat, each species, each moment of stillness is part of their legacy. When Wingull fly in spirals above the sea at dawn, it mirrors Rayquaza's orbit. When Camerupts sleep in steaming caves, it reflects Groudon's rest. When Whiscash hums under the waves during storms, it carries Kyogre's lullaby. Every part of nature sings a note in their endless symphony. Over the years, as technology and culture have evolved, the story of the Weather Trio has shifted from myth to meditation. Artists no longer paint their battles, but the space between them, the quiet skies, the calm seas, the dormant volcanoes. Writers use their story to explore emotion and balance in human life. Groudon becomes the metaphor for drive and ambition, Kyogre for empathy and understanding, and Rayquaza for clarity, the state of mind that unites both. Their legend has become less about power and more about peace, teaching each generation how to live gently in a changing world. In a way, that is the truest legacy of all. Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza were never meant to be worshipped. They were meant to be understood. The ancients may have feared them, but modern Hoenn has learned to love them, not as monsters or gods, but as symbols of harmony. To look at a sunset over the ocean and see red light on blue waves fading into green sky is to see them all at once. Their story is written across the horizon every single evening, and so, as night deepens and the sea grows still, the legend continues to hum quietly beneath the world's surface. Groudon sleeps beneath the mountains, Kyogre dreams in the trenches, and Rayquaza circles far above, unseen but always present. The world turns, the tides breathe, and the balance endures. If you listen carefully tonight, past the sound of the wind, beyond the hum of the earth, you might hear it too. A low, steady rhythm, like a heart beneath the stars. That is the pulse of the Weather Trio, the heartbeat of the planet, the whisper of balance that keeps everything alive. And as you drift into sleep, you carry that balance within you, the strength of the land, the calm of the sea, the peace of the sky, all resting together, as they always have, as they always will.